"This place is horrible," is the literal translation of the phrase adorning the main entrance to the Church of Saint Mary Magdalene in the French village of Rennes-le-Château. Historians cannot properly explain why the parish priest Bérenger Saunière left such a strange message for all those entering, nor can they explain why guests are greeted at the threshold by a statue of Asmodeus, a wicked, lustful demon from Jewish mythology. Saunière likely deliberately created an atmosphere of fear to reinforce the main local legend that the Holy Grail was stored here. The first mention of the Church of St. Mary Magdalene dates back to the 8th century. However, after some time, not a single stone remained of it. By the 10th century, it was decided to rebuild it, especially since Rennes-le-Château was home to many respectable individuals who sponsored this pious endeavor. In particular, it was the residence of one of the Grand Masters of the Knights Templar. Throughout history, many prominent figures, including many future dukes and counts, were present in this territory. However, by the 19th century, the village had fallen into decline. Only about 300 people lived there. It was a poor, small, rural, provincial settlement where the ruins of the Church of Mary Magdalene had, of course, lost their former image and outline. The life of the God-forsaken settlement changed dramatically in 1885 when a young Catholic priest, François Bérenger Saunière, was appointed as the parish priest. At first, he behaved modestly, but after a few years, he suddenly embarked on a grand reconstruction of the church in a style that was neither Gothic nor Victorian, with columns, carvings, and strange bas-reliefs. The abbot found significant, impressive funds for the church's renovation. At the time, the renovation cost about 11,500 francs, which currently equates to 4.5 million euros. It became clear that the Holy Father was not a hermit, but a lover of the high life when he built his estate. François Bérenger Saunière did not skimp on comfort. He had no intention of living an ascetic life. Therefore, he bought several large plots of land immediately. Saunière created an estate for himself that included a villa, an orangery, a garden with a pool, his private library, and much more. The construction cost 26,000 francs, which, considering inflation, is equivalent to 10 million euros today. He transferred ownership of his property to his assistant, Marie Denarnaud. The villagers were puzzled. Where did a simple pastor get his immense wealth? But it was not convenient for the locals to investigate. After all, François Bérenger Saunière had also transformed Rennes-le-Château beyond recognition. He repaired roads and even installed a water supply. Rumors circulated that one of the bishops had heard about the village priest with wealthy tendencies, initiated an investigation, and supposedly even held a show trial. But it turned out that Saunière was under the patronage of the Pope himself. The direct personal involvement of the Pope, who freed Bérenger Saunière from persecution and financial audits, added another layer to the legend that Bérenger Saunière might have known something that provided a valuable service to the Pope, or perhaps blackmailed him. The abbot was temporarily suspended from service, seemingly to divert attention, and was deprived of his church salary, although it probably seemed like mere pennies to Bérenger Saunière. Soon the entire village grew accustomed to the eccentric parish priest and his reckless spending. Saunière took the secret of his wealth to the grave. In 1917, the abbot passed away, and the story could have ended there. But in the mid-20th century, restorer Noël Corbu bought François Bérenger Saunière's estate from his assistant, Marie Denarnaud. At the time, she was old and ill, and Noël Corbu opened a hotel with a restaurant there. Later, when the owner died, he inherited her personal archive, where he found information about the substantial funds Saunière spent on the church's reconstruction and his estate. It turned out that during the renovation of the Church of St. Mary Magdalene, a stonemason found several wooden cylinders under an ancient altar slab. The worker was afraid to open them and immediately brought them to the parish priest. Inside, François Bérenger Saunière allegedly discovered ancient scrolls. There were 4 secret scrolls, and 3 of them contained information about genealogical trees. The 4th contained encrypted data about the location of the treasure of Blanche of Castile, the French queen who was supposed to ransom her son, Louis IX, from captivity for 28.5 million coins. Louis IX was indeed captured by Bedouins during the Crusade of 1250. The ransom was collected throughout France. Historians do not know if Blanche of Castile could have taken and hidden part of the sum, but this would explain how the abbot suddenly became wealthy. In that case, he probably wouldn't have had time to spend all the royal stash, treasure hunters decided. They flocked to Rennes-le-Château and dug up the village from end to end. In 1965, the local municipality even issued a special decree prohibiting anyone from digging on the territory to preserve the existing landscape and vineyards. However, the legend and mystery of the Church of Mary Magdalene, and most importantly, the source of Bérenger Saunière's wealth, remain a mystery to this day. During his lifetime, the Holy Father himself liked to joke, and when asked, "Where did the money come from?" he would say, "God sent it." But proponents of conspiracy theories had their own version of how the pastor became rich. They suggested that during the renovation of the Church of St. Mary Magdalene, Bérenger Saunière found not sacred scrolls, but sacred relics. According to one version, the Knights Templar, whose residence was in Rennes-le-Château, possessed the Holy Grail, the cup into which, according to legend, the blood of the crucified Jesus Christ was collected. According to mystifiers and historians who tried to investigate the source of Bérenger Saunière's wealth, it is possible that he accidentally discovered this Templar treasure, which French kings and historians had been searching for over many centuries. Perhaps it was he, Bérenger Saunière, a humble priest, who found it, and also found channels through which he secretly sold these immeasurable treasures for millions, or perhaps even tens of millions, of modern dollars or euros. Historians cannot vouch for the Holy Grail. However, the Templars could easily have hidden their wealth in the Church of St. Mary Magdalene, and the new parish priest could have found the order's treasure and taken it for himself. But in 1974, it suddenly came to light that François Bérenger Saunière might have been a fraud in a cassock. The first scholarly book about Saunière's activities was written by local historian and librarian René Descodillo. He studied personal correspondence, account books, and church trial records related to Saunière. According to canon law, a priest can conduct 1 mass per day. On weekends or holidays, 2 to 3 masses are allowed. However, Saunière took money for thousands of masses, 1 franc each, and some clients sent money by mail for hundreds of liturgical masses that he never performed. Such manipulations with the conduct of services are considered not just sinful, but akin to a crime for Catholics. However, the author of the investigation believes that François Bérenger Saunière didn't care. In his village, he was his own master. No one monitored him, and after the Pope intervened on his behalf, he became completely untouchable. And by the way, he boasted about it a lot. So, to all the sins of this not-so-holy father, in addition to his love of luxury and lying, one can certainly add pride.